Welcome back, everyone, to session 3, the final session of Tactile Graphics using Inkscape. My name is Julie Sumwalt. We'll pick up right where we left off from video 2. I do want to backtrack just a moment, though. We were working on the pen tool. And so if I click on the pen tool on the toolbar on the left here, and then just click somewhere, I want to show you how to do right triangles. So click somewhere on your workspace here. And to make a perfectly vertical line, I can press and hold Control on my keyboard. You can see how the line jumps around in 15-degree increments, but I want a perfectly vertical line for now. And then click where I want the corner of the right triangle to be. Keep pressing my Control key on the keyboard to make a perfectly horizontal line. Let go of Control on the keyboard. And now connect the two points to make my hypotenuse and my right triangle. When I connect the two end points, it all joins up into a right triangle, and then I can change the stroke or the fill however I want. And I can even put a little right triangle in the mark in the corner. Press and hold the Control key. And if I have a lot, and then enter to make it stop. And if I have a lot of these, I can make copies of those and bring those into the workspace, the canvas, which I will show you later. But I also want to point out that right now the outline of the triangle and the outline of the right triangle corner mark are the same weight. That is not good, not for Tactile Graphics. So click on the triangle again, select it with the selector arrow at the top of the toolbar, then go to Fill and Stroke panel on the right, Fill and Stroke tab, Stroke Style, and then we want to work in points now, so PT. Then the width, again, I like 1.5, but we're going to make that right corner, remember. So let's say we put that really light at 0.75. In order to distinguish two lines that are next to each other with the fingers, they need to be at least 2 points difference. So suppose we have 0.75 for the right corner mark, add 2 points, that's 2.75 for the triangles. So let's go with 2.75. Just type it in on with the keyboard, press enter. There, that is a good right triangle with a right corner mark, very light in the corner. And now I'm going to draw a bounding box, a marquee around the whole thing. Press delete on my keyboard to make it go away, because now I want to show you the next tool after the pen tool, which is the pencil tool. I do not recommend the pencil tool, and I will show you why. Go back to the pen tool, and I'm just going to click and drag randomly to draw some goofy little line, and press enter when I'm done. I forgot to click and drag on one of the points, so I go back to my nodes. Notice I only have a very few nodes. From the left to the right, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it for the whole line. There are only 5 nodes. I want to fix this one here that I forgot to, though. So I click on that one, and I see the handles, those things that stick out at the end, on either side, I mean. Those are called handles, and they're very short, which means they're a corner. It's a corner, not a curve. But I can fix that by going up to the top, Controls Command bar, and it's this node, almost in the middle of all these little blue icons there. Click that, and now my node should be smooth. Yes, I can stretch out the handles and see how the line curves like that. So that's how I can work with a curved line using the pen tool. Now we'll go to the pencil tool, the one underneath the pen tool on the tools bar. Click that, and I'll trace the same line underneath it to show you just what I'm doing. So I have to press and hold the left mouse key, and I am moving my mouse literally. Every move I make is recorded. Suppose I sneeze or somebody bumps my elbow. Oh, that's a mistake. Continuing to trace, then I let go of my mouse and I get a line that's sort of like what I have with the pen tool. First, let's try and fix that elbow bumper, that sneeze right there. Remember, I only had 5 nodes on that curved line with the pen tool. Watch what happens when I click on the node tool with the pencil line drawn selected. Look at all those nodes. Every one of those would have to be fixed if I wanted to use the pencil tool and fix this. So say I want to go back and fix that elbow bumper sneeze. I have to very carefully click each of these nodes that's affected and delete it. There are a couple of ways to delete it, I found. Sometimes one works better than the other. I'm not sure what makes a difference, but I'm going to try pressing delete on my keyboard right now. Delete, and it did go away. But I still have all these other nodes that have to be deleted. So I have to click, delete. And by now it becomes hard to see which are the nodes and which are the handles. There must be a way to make it easier to see it on Inkscape, but I don't know what that is yet. I'm making progress. I've deleted 2 nodes, I think, so far. That must be a handle that I just tried to click on. Delete. You can see how difficult this is, how I'm squinting at the screen trying to find that each little node that has to be deleted in order to fix that bump. I think I have 2 very long handles, or at least 1 very long handle. So one is here. Yep, here, there we go. That has to be deleted. So this is a node right here at the other end of it on the line. Press delete on my keyboard. I've still got this huge bulge that I need to get rid of. You can see this is going to take me a long time. I'm not going to make you suffer through the whole thing. You can tell that using the pencil tool is hazardous at best. So I'm going to click the selector tool and delete on my keyboard to get rid of that awful pencil tool. I'm going to do the same thing with the pen tool because we're done with that right now. Okay, moving down the tools bar, the pen tool, the pencil tool, calligraphy tool, I think I mentioned in the previous video, don't use that unless you really want to show a student what calligraphy looks like. The text tool with the little capital A, we've talked a bit about it already. So the text tool, I've discovered since then, however, you don't need to draw a text box first. You can just click anywhere on your workspace, and I'll do weird things are happening. Okay. Text. We do have Swell Braille and 24-point font as the default. So if I click anywhere on my workspace inside the printable area, a familiar looking cursor is blinking now. And now I can, there we go. I can just type on the keyboard using the ASCII code chart in the back of the handout as I've provided. So I am typing on the key. Yes, I'm typing on the keyboard the Braille word testing, TE, and then the forward slash is ST. The plus sign on the keyboard is ING. And then I press enter. And there's my Braille word. So that's how the text box can work. So I've selected that text, deleting on my keyboard. Talk about the next tools on continuing down the toolbar. The next three have to do with gradients and meshes. Avoid those at all costs. The next two, excuse me, avoid those two. They have to do with things that pertain to graphic design, and they're terrible for tactile graphics. The color picker, or sometimes people call it the eyedropper, the color picker and the bounded areas tools. You might find uses for those later on as you become more proficient with Inkscape, but I'm going to skip those for now. Continuing down, tweak objects, avoid that one. Spray objects, do not touch. Erase existing paths. You may find that useful. I don't use it very often, but it's a nice way to erase something if you want to do that. So I'll show you that quickly. Again, I'm just going to click and drag around, making a nice, well, a goofy looking line really. There's my line. Say I want to erase part of it, and I can pick up top on the tools command bar how wide I want that eraser to be. So right now, say I want to make it big, and then I can erase. It's kind of difficult. So it's kind of like that pencil tool, really. You have to erase pretty precisely, but it will do it, and you might get some really weird results. But there it is. If you want to try and use it, go ahead. After that, on the tools control bar is a create diagram connector tool. It sounds like it should be really useful, but I think it's a little too helpful. I think you're better off drawing lines, like if you have a flow chart, say with different shapes, rectangles and circles and whatnot, connect them with the pen tool rather than this fancy connector tool. Next one down is the zoom tool. Definitely that should be useful, but there are shortcuts that I find are even more useful. You can use the zoom tool, click it, the cursor turns into a little diagram of a magnifying glass with a plus sign on it, and that will kind of zoom you in generally. It'll just put your nose right into the diagram. What I find better though is I'll just draw a random shape. I can use my keyboard. The numbers have different uses. I haven't learned them all, but 3 and 5 are my favorites so far. So 3 will get me a really big diagram. I'm going to press it, and this rectangle, I hope, will suddenly be in your face. There it is. I usually don't like things that big. So then I can go to my plus and minus or my hyphen keys on my keyboard and back out just a bit. I'll press my minus key just once, and that's usually a good size for me. You can experiment with what you like. But for now, I'm going to delete it. So 3 and 5. Oh, 3, okay, made my object that I had selected really big. Then I backed out a bit with my minus key. If I want to see the whole workspace again, I can press my 5 key. And there it is. It's all, I can see the whole thing all at once. So far, again, 3 and 5 are my favorites. I'll press delete on my keyboard to get rid of that rectangle. Moving on. I think the next thing I want to show you a little bit about, just to point it out, is the align and distribute features. A whole separate workshop and handout could be written on this feature, the align and distribute functions. But I just want to show you where it is and kind of what it does. So suppose I have a bunch of objects to align and distribute. I'll just try to copy the handout diagram as much as possible. I don't like this black, so I'm just going to change it to 40% gray, which is my favorite. Leave an outline because that makes a more defined edge. So I have a long rectangle, and then I'll draw an ellipse and an oval standing on its end, just because, and try to draw a star with the star and polygon tool. Oh, I drew a triangle before, so I actually do want that. So we'll put that down here. And then I'm going to attempt to draw a star. The selector tool, click it, bring it down to where I kind of want it. Star tool again. Hopefully this works. If you remember the star and polygon tool, when you go up to the top of the tools command bar, I want a polygon, not a star. Well, actually, I do want a star this time, excuse me. I want a star, and I would like 5 corners on this. So I'm going to press or click on the plus sign here on this corners field. The plus sign, oh, it makes a funny shape with a 4, and then 5. That's what I want. Selector tool, click that. Click in the middle of the star so I can spin it around using one of these curved corner bidirectional arrows. I'm clicking and dragging until it spins around to kind of what I want. Okay, now I have 4 different shapes to work with. I want to show you the align and distribute features just a little bit. I am going to click and drag a bounding box, a marquee, around all 4 objects so they're all selected. Then I'm going to go to, I think it's object, and then almost down to the bottom is align and distribute. Click that. That gives me a new dialog on the right side. It has a align and distribute tab at the top. My other dialogs are still there. They're just abbreviated. So I still have my fill and stroke tab. I still have my layers tab. Go back to the align and distribute tab. And you can align things relative to the selection area or the drop-down menu, and there's some other options, but usually the selection area is what I want. So I'm just going to leave that there for a while. Then the 6, you see how these little icons, chiclets, some people call them. So the ones that are probably the most useful at the beginning stage are this 6 kind of in the middle ones. This align the left edges. Let's click that and see what happens. It smashes all the objects that I drew over to the left side. Control Z to undo. If I want to center them on a vertical axis, I'll click that, watch what happens. Click, makes all the objects stack on top of each other vertically. Control Z again to undo. Align to the right edges, Control Z, and the 3 underneath those. Align top edges. Oh, that makes a nice row. Control Z. Center on the horizontal axis, even nicer row. Control Z. Align bottom edges. That's okay. The others, again, are a little fancy for right now, but these 6 are probably the most useful. Control Z one more time. I want to show you the distribute features a little bit now. So center on a vertical axis. I'm just going to click that just because. And you see how they're all stacked on top of each other. Within a layer, the objects are stacked according to the order that you drew them in. But I don't want them all on top of each other right now. I want to distribute them so I can see them. So I am going to click on some of these distribute icons to see what happens. Probably the most useful ones at this stage are distribute vertically and distribute horizontally. So I am going to make vertical gaps between the objects equal. Let's see what that does. Oh, that kind of didn't do what I wanted. Let's try distribute centers equidistantly vertically. That sounds promising, but nothing happened, at least not that we can tell. Distribute top edges equidistantly. So what I really want to do actually is select, using the selector arrow, select each of these objects individually and spread them out just a little bit. And then go back and select them all, draw, click and drag to draw a text box, excuse me, a bounding box around them. Now let's try some of these distribute. That's better. So you just have to play around with these until you get what you want. Again, an entire session, an entire separate handout could be written about all of these. But for now, you probably just want to focus on align and distribute. Never mind the rearrange, remove overlaps or nodes. Those are far more complicated, and you may never need to use those because they might be more useful for graphic designers rather than tactile graphic designers. Delete on my keyboard to get rid of all of those. The next thing I want to show you is how to draw arrows. First, I'm going to draw a shaft using the pen tool. Click on the toolbar and the pen tool. Click, press and hold Control on my keyboard to make a perfectly horizontal line, and just click somewhere. Oh, I have to press Enter to make it stop. That's going to be the shaft of our arrow. Now, Inkscape calls things that we put on the either end of the line or in the middle of the line markers. Let's go back to fill and stroke in the dialog on the right. And in the middle, we see options for having markers. We can put them on the left end, in the middle, or at the right end. Let's do the right end for now. There's a drop-down menu with a very long, I'm scrolling and scrolling. It's a very long list of different kinds of markers that you can use to put on this blank or that straight line. Not one of these meets the requirements for BANA arrows. BANA gives two options for arrowheads, neither of which are in this nice long list. I'm just going to click somewhere to make that go away. So what we need to do is to draw our own arrowheads. The only provision for the open arrowhead, which is my favorite, there are open arrowheads, and then I guess you'd call them closed arrowheads. I like the open arrowheads much better because I think they're easier to feel with your fingers tactily. So I'm going to show you that first. I've drawn my shaft. The only specification that BANA gives for drawing the arrowhead is that the shaft needs to be 1/8 inch from the point of the arrowhead. So we can make guidelines to help us make that 1 inch gap between the shaft and the arrowhead. So you remember how to make guidelines. You click and drag on this left-hand ruler, the vertical ruler. Click and drag, a line follows you as you drag across. And I'm eyeballing the line. There's a guideline right there. Click and drag on that left vertical ruler again, bring another line and make another line 1/8 inch from the one that you just drew. I'm going to do just a little bit of adjusting here to make it easier to measure 1/8 inch. 1/8 inch. Oh, I see. You may have seen it too. Because of the snap feature, I can't remember if I mentioned that before, I've gotten too close to the guideline with the second guideline, I've gotten too close to the first guideline, and Inkscape snapped that second guideline right to the first guideline. I don't want that. I really do want an 1/8 inch distance between the two guidelines. So way over to the right, in the first video, you may have remember that I mentioned the snap the snap bar menu over here, way over to the right. This is about the only time when I would use this snap tools bar. The very top one says it toggles the snapping on and off. Right now it's on, it's selected. So I want to click on it to make it not snap anymore. Now go back to the left guideline that we're trying to make with an 1/8 inch. It's a little tricky, making a hand 1/8 inch, about like that. That means I need to move my line over just a bit to make it touch that leftmost guideline. Next, go to the pen tool. I know this seems very slow and nitpicky right now, but you only have to do this once, I hope. Remember that if I press and hold the control key on my keyboard, I will get straight lines in increments of 15 degrees. So click, press and hold my control key on my keyboard, because what I want now are basically 45-degree lines. The BANA guidelines say that there needs to be 30-degree difference, 30-degree angles with two of the corners of the triangle of the arrowhead. So if I click and then click on the rightmost guideline while pressing the control key on my keyboard, I get a pretty good line. Then I'm still holding the control key on my keyboard. And I'm just trying to draw the second. Click and drag, and then I let go of the keyboard, the control key on the keyboard. My line is still following me around because I need to press enter to make my arrowhead. It's not quite perfect, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Now then, oops, excuse me, don't do that. Click my selector tool just for now. Now I want to make these two temporary guidelines that I drew for the arrowhead to go away. Or maybe I'll leave them there for now. What I'm really going to do is select my shaft and the arrowhead of my arrow. Remember our align and distribute dialog over on the right. Click that tab at the top. What I want now is to align that shaft with the middle of the arrowhead. This might not work because I didn't draw the arrowhead perfectly, but I'll try to show you. Where is it? Here we go. Center on horizontal axis. There. Now I have the shaft and the arrowhead centered perfectly. They're still a little thin, so I'm going to go to the Fill and Stroke tab on the right dialog. Stroke style. Again, I like PT for points, and I like 1.5 for a basic line. Press enter on my keyboard. That's pretty good. Oops. Draw a bounding box around the shaft and the arrow. Right now, Inkscape is treating these two parts of the arrow as two separate things, the shaft and the arrowhead. I can group them. If you're a keyboard user, you can do Control G, or if you're a mouse user for now, you can do Object at the top, menu bar at the top of the screen, Object, and then scroll down just a ways for Group. That makes the shaft and the arrowhead one object instead of two. So now when I click and drag on this arrow, the whole thing moves, not just the shaft or the arrowhead, depending on what I clicked on. Also, I said you only have to do this once. So once you make the arrow, your arrow as you want it, you can click and drag it over onto your canvas. Just keep it out of the way for now. The next time you want an arrow You can copy and paste however you like to do it. Control C, Control V, or I think you can do it with right click on the object. Yes, copy and paste, however you like to do it. I like Control C, Control V, and then this arrow I can click and drag back onto my work area if I need an arrow. Also, suppose I don't want a right pointing arrow. I want it to point in either left or up or down. There are icons at the top of the tools commands bar, and I'm going to try to remember which way. Rotate selection 90 degrees counterclockwise. Watch this. So up to the left, I'm clicking as I go down, and one more time click to make it to the right as it originally was. Or I can go clockwise if I prefer that way. I can flip the arrow from pointing to the right. I can flip it horizontally to make it point to the left. That's a bit of a shortcut instead of having to rotate it all around. I'll flip it back. If I click on the arrow, just anywhere on the arrow, one more time, now my arrows around that arrow, that's kind of ironic, arrows around the arrow, they're bidirectional now. So if I click and drag on the curved arrows at the corners, I can click it. So if I don't want perfectly left, right, up or down, I can make it into any angle I want. I'm just clicking and drag, and notice how the bounding box changes, but the arrow doesn't. That's kind of significant, but too much to go into right now. There we are. So I'm going to click delete on my keyboard to make that arrow go away. I also want to get rid of these temporary guidelines. I can hover over them until the cursor becomes a hand, click, and I hope this works. Delete on my keyboard. It did. One more time. Hover until the cursor becomes a hand, press delete on the keyboard. Those temporary guidelines are now gone. And just to make sure, I want to double check the real guide, the printing guides that I want to be permanent. When I click and drag over the guidelines, the cursor never becomes a hand. So that I know I'm good. Those are still stable. They're permanent. The other kind of arrow that BANA approves of is using an isosceles triangle. So click on the pen tool, press Control on my keyboard to make a little shaft, enter to make it stop. And now I don't recommend using the polygon tool to make your triangle. It needs to be an isosceles triangle. Before with the open triangle, I was trying to explain that there needs to be 30 degrees within the triangle. That's not true. It's for the closed triangle. That we need two corners to have interior angles of 30 degrees, and the other angle is going to be 60 degrees. Is that right? 30, 30, and then a smaller angle. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the angles that need to be there. It's math. They need to equal 180, right? So 30, 30 is 60. And then the third angle is 60 degrees, I think. So let's try to draw that with our pen tool. I recommend that better than trying to use the polygon tool. So I am going to make my triangle using the pen tool. Click, press Control on my keyboard, click, join it all up, which isn't working very well. Here we go. That is going to be a huge arrowhead. I don't want it that big. So I'm going to click, delete that little line. On the on the selector arrow, click on the triangle, and I want to shrink this a bit. I'm clicking on one of the corner arrows on the bounding box now. Press and hold Shift on my keyboard to shrink it proportionally, about like that. Again, there's no rule about the size of the arrowhead. It's just whatever works for you, your equipment, and your student, especially your student. I'm going to click on this. Well, actually, I'm going to fill this triangle for now because the triangle needs to be filled. So 40% is my favorite. I clicked on the color bar down below. Now I want to click on this arrowhead and spin it around so that it's horizontal. Again, this isn't perfect. If you're doing this for real, you would want to be more accurate, but I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes. Click and drag the arrowhead. Don't let it touch the shaft just yet. Draw a bounding box around both the shaft and the arrowhead. Go over to our dialog on the right. The right tab, Align and Distribute, is what we want right now. And again, you only have to do this once, hopefully. So you just have to be very detailed right now, but later you can drag it off to your canvas and reuse it. So right now I want to align the shaft with the arrowhead. So I'm going to use this icon, the center on horizontal axis. And then I'm not sure, but I wonder if distribute centers equal, no. I'm just kind of guessing with these distribute possibilities right now. Let's see what happens when I click on this make horizontal gaps. I know I don't want a gap. Never mind that. I'm going to click on just the shaft now and click on my arrow key on the keyboard until I get the two parts touching. That's pretty good, I think. Now I'm going to draw a bounding box with my selector tool all around the two objects. Control G on my keyboard to group, or I can go to Object and Group. Object, and then Group right here. Now I have an arrow that is also approved by BANA. Also, I want to mention that suppose I want the shaft a different length on either kind of arrowhead, the open arrowhead or this closed triangle arrowhead. I can click on the node tool, click on the shaft, and then click on one of the ends, and I'm just clicking and dragging. Press Control if you want to keep the shaft perfectly straight. And I can make the shaft really short or really long, however I need it to go. When it's short, this looks awful according to graphic designers. That's why we need to draw our own arrowheads when we're making tactile graphics, because tactile graphics says the arrowhead needs to be detectable with the fingers. We can't have it shrink just because we shrunk the shaft. So I can also group these, or maybe they already are grouped. They already are grouped. So I drag this off to my canvas and just park it there for the time being until I need an arrowhead like that again. Okay. That's enough for the arrows. And I've showed you how you can park it in the canvas. Now I want to show you how to import a print image that you can trace over. That's really important. This is where the benefits of using a digital means of drawing tactile graphics really shines. So first I want to make sure I'm in the right layer. So go back to our old layer tab on the right. For this, this is where the print page layer comes in. I want to make sure that that print page layer is selected. It's unlocked so that I can work with it and it's visible. Then go to File, the file menu up at the far left, upper left corner, and import. Import. And I have an image that I found online. It's a bunch of butterflies, I think. So I'm just going to click that and open it. I get this a little dialogue. I honestly don't know what any of these things mean. It seems to work perfectly well if I leave well enough alone, and just click OK. And here is my image. And here also is where I will want to zoom in. So I want to zoom in on this greenish, light green butterfly moth looking insect creature. I don't know what it is really. And I'm just going to zoom in on that as best I can using either the zoom tool or plus and minus on my keyboard or 5 and 3 on my keyboard. I think if I press 5, I'm going to get, it's going to go into the whole image. It doesn't know that I want that green butterfly yet. So I'm going to just press my plus sign on my keyboard for now and pan around. One way to pan around is to press and hold the spacebar on your keyboard, and then your cursor turns into a 4-way arrow. And I can do that if I like, but what I really want to do as well, takes a little practice. I also want to make the entire image more onto my workspace. Right now it's kind of off to the side. So I can move that if I want by the selector arrow. Click on one of these butterflies, I get a bounding box around it, and I can move that around by clicking and dragging if I want, but it takes a little bit of finesse. Let's go back to that green butterfly just for now. I know what I can do. I can press 5 on my keyboard. Now click on one of the butterflies, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to move it around. That's not being very efficient. Click on one of the butterflies. That's what I need to do, not on the bounding box, the butterfly. Until that green butterfly that I want to trace is somewhere in the middle of the workspace. It doesn't have to be perfect for now. And then I want to lock this print page because I don't want it to move around as I'm tracing it. So I'm going to go over to my dialog box on the right, click that little eye icon, but I still want it visible. So I'm going to leave the eye icon open. Go to my traced tactile layer now. Oops. It's already selected. That's why it's doing that to me. So go to my traced tactile layer. Now I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to press and hold my spacebar key and roll my mouse wheel just for now. That doesn't work. Let's try a different way. Press that, click on that magnifying glass in the toolbar. Let's see what happens if I click on this green butterfly. Oh, this is the way to go. Okay. You just have to kind of try things out and see what works for you. I'm done zooming in. That's as big as I want it. Now I want the pen tool. Right now my line is black. If I want to change it because I picked a dark butterfly, black isn't going to work. Black is going to be obscured by the black butterfly in the background. I can make it my line that I'm going to use a lighter color. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. I'll try to remind myself to do that. But for right now, I have the pen tool selected. I'm on my trace tactile layer with the print page butterfly in the background. It's on the lower below. So that's locked, so it's not going to move. And I'm just going to click and drag as I go and trace around one wing. You can just barely see it. So wherever the wing curves and the angle changes, that's where I'm going to click and drag on a wing and finish up by clicking and pressing enter on my keyboard. And I continue doing that through the whole butterfly. You can see that I haven't traced perfectly, and that's okay because all I need to do is go to the node tool in the toolbar I see my nodes and I click on one of the nodes that I want to fix. I can see my handles and just click and drag or delete the nodes as I showed you earlier until you get what you want. I can click on the node and move it entirely if I want, and that does goofy things. I can see the handles on this node are really long, or at least one of them is. So I'm going to shorten it. Click and drag on the handle. Try to. So it takes a little, there we go, and just shrink it. And now I can make the curve much more how I want it. So go around and change your nodes. One more one. This is this line up at the top of the left right wing. It's not quite how I want it. So I'm going to click on the handle. Try to. There we go. And change it. So you see it, you don't have to worry about being perfect at first. You don't need to be an artist and you don't need to grit your teeth or start all over. You just need to make adjustments until you get something that is what you want. When you're all done, I won't go through the whole thing, but you trace all the other parts, all the wings, the body, the thorax, the head, the antlers. You don't want great detail because again, this is for the fingers. So you don't want all this prettiness that you see with your eyes. You want something that just shows the shape of the butterfly. When you're all done, you want the print layer to go away. So go back to the print layer, go back to the layers dialog on the right, click on the print page layer. It's already locked. That's good. But now I'm going to click on the eye icon and make it go away. And so when I'm done, I can see where I might need to make some more adjustments so that it works better for the fingers. If I need to, I can bring the butterfly back to trace around it again. I just click on that eye icon and make it visible again. And that's the beauty of layers. That concludes this session and indeed the entire Inkscape tutorial. There are a few other random tips I have in the handout and also some contact information if you want to contact me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and turn on my camera to say goodbye. There I am. So again, if you need to contact me about these webinars, this webinar series, or as you're working with Inkscape and something isn't working or you wish it could do something, go ahead and contact me. I am happy to research things. I like doing it and it's my job. So you're giving me job security by asking me questions. Don't feel bad about doing that. And that's all for now. Thank you very much for joining in. I hope to see you later for future webinars. Goodbye.